Welcome to the Defining Moments Black Men series of the Authentic Joe Show. I'm your host, Jolena Johnson, and it is my privilege and pleasure to welcome today's guest, Mr. Meredith Beal. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Jolena. It's always nice to chat with you. We have such interesting discussions. I happen to be in U.S. at the moment in Dallas, and looking forward to our conversation.
Well, thank you so much. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your occupation, and your background?
Okay, I was born and brought up in Los Angeles. I went to Crenshaw High School. I went to the University of Houston. Um, my first job, well, growing up, I was interested in chemistry, music, and journalism. My first job in journalism was at the LA Times with a byline when I was like 22. And the next several years, I was editor in chief of a number of magazines and newspapers: LA View, Rhythm and Blues Report, Black Sounds, several magazines, Image, Empowering the Man of Color. And
Hmm.
then I left Image to go to I left R&B Report to go to Motown Records, where I was director of marketing and also wear another hat of IT director or MIS director, which actually was the first person in the entertainment industry with that title. When we went to
Okay.
Motown, they had no computers. Me and my lifelong friend Jonathan Clark brought ours, and then quickly the CEO saw how productive it is and told us to go get it for everybody. So we bought 150 computers. I connected the Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York offices and taught everybody uh, how to use a computer.
Wow.
And we also, Motown became the first digitized company in the entertainment industry, which their parent companies and all the other companies followed suit after they saw we saved Motown millions of dollars the first year when we transferred from old film to digital uh, desktop publishing and creative services. I left Motown and went to Dell Computer. I was Dell's first global webmaster. Matter of fact, I was the first person anywhere with that title. My job was to go to the 23 countries that Dell did business in, hire a webmaster for each of those countries, and then manage them and the global architecture. Um,
Wow.
while at Dell, I bought several radio stations
Hmm.
because at the LA Time, it taught me about the manipulation of information.
Hmm.
So I bought a station so I could have confidence in what the people in my geography were hearing.
Hmm.
And in 2007, I was named Texas Broadcaster of the Year. Texas has more radio stations and TV stations than any other state. And I was the Broadcaster of the Year in 2007. While at Motown, I was consulting other record companies, which led to me getting a record deal to do a catalog of Gambian music under the Soda Coda label.
Hmm.
And then, after I left Dell, I spent the next 10 years managing my stations. Then the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded a program to strengthen the management skills of media owners in Africa. They did a global search and found me to be the best person to help African media, and found that I had more experience in so many of the various aspects of media than just about anybody. So I moved to Kenya in 2011.
Hmm.
I saw they were struggling with the analog switch off, which we did back in 2009. So I wrote a book on the topic, and that became my job the next 2 years, digitizing broadcasting all across the African continent. So in that process, I left a legacy of innovation. Everywhere we go, we change something to what's possible. And so that the joy from innovation and imagination and creativity and ingenuity is what drives me.
Hmm.
When I got also while I was in Africa, I was a delegate at the United Nations Environment Assembly. I was a delegate at the African Union Assembly, and I've been to 62 countries in the world and 27 African countries.
Wow. That
Thank you.
is that is fantastic. Thank you so much. How can you be the marketing person and the IT person? But you explained it.
Because I slept 3 or 4 hours a day. My night
I got
shift
it.
was IT.
I
Night
know
shift was
you're
IT.
yes, I know you are multi-task faceted. It was just when you were saying that, I'm like, marketing and IT, they don't go together, but I get it. I love it, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, how would you describe yourself?
um, my I'm a human being to
Okay.
start with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh-oh, you're typing. We
I'm
can
sorry.
hear you.
Oh, boo. So sorry.
Okay, you're a human
Yes,
being. We'll take it. We'll take it.
yes.
We'll move on to the next question. If you had to pick a phrase that would be the theme for your life, what would it be?
I live I seek to live a creative life and generate value in as many spheres of human activity as possible. That entails promoting friendship and dialogue as the best means to achieve a peaceful world, to promote innovation and technology as the best means to improve the quality of life for the most people, to promote rehumanization of politics and economics so that those fields better serve humanity, and to use my imagination and creativity to the fullest to transform the world.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so many people will say, well, what is a defining moment? So let me tell you, a defining moment is a point in life when a pivotal decision must be made or when an experience fundamentally changes a person. What defining moment would you be willing to share with us today?
My defining moment and the turning point in my life occurred in November of 1978. One of my cousins owned a liquor store in South Central Los Angeles, and while helping her out one day, three teenagers came in to rob the store, and in the process, I got shot. I was shot in the heart with a sawed-off shotgun, and I didn't know how badly I was hurt, so I got up and I called my mother. I called 911, and then I went in the back and started chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, my mantra for my spiritual practice. The police came, I gave them descriptions, and I continued chanting all the way to the hospital. They x-rayed me, put me in a room, let my parents come in. Um, what I didn't know is that they told them that I had approximately 50 buckshot pellets in my chest, one in my left eye, and I had a huge hemorrhage in my eye. And I didn't know any of that. All I know is I was going to be okay. I refused to go to sleep until, I was confident that I was on pace. And so there was one of the 5 pellets that were inside my heart, 5 in my heart, 4 in my lung, and who knows how many rest of the place. There was one pellet that was floating around, and they were concerned and doing all these tests to see where it might settle to determine whether or not they'd have to do open heart surgery. That the event happened on a Sunday, and it was Wednesday was the first time I got to look in the mirror, and I had to laugh because it was like a Halloween mask. It wasn't me. What I saw in the mirror and what I felt inside was totally different. But I understood why everybody was disturbed and concerned. They told my parents that they would have to remove my eye to fix the hemorrhage. But the pellet that was floating around got surrounded by scar tissue in a perfect place not to do any damage. I left the hospital 7 days later, no surgery. They told me to come back a couple of weeks later to address my eye. I came back 2 weeks later, and the hemorrhage had gone in my eye. I had 20/20 vision. And the doctors asked me, what have you been doing? I said, I've been chanting. So it took my hand stay sleep for about a year. I also am a musician, so I had
Okay,
this
hold
creative
on one
urge.
second. You said your
Mhm.
hand stayed asleep. Is that what you said?
Yes, there were a number of pellets in my hands, and
Okay,
the nerves were damaged.
okay, gotcha.
So it was sleep. And
Okay.
I'm a bass player, and I couldn't play the bass.
Mhm.
So during that year, when the feeling started and movement started to come back, I still didn't have enough strength to play the bass.
Okay.
So it forced me to find a creative expression, which became keyboard. So it made me become better at keyboard, so I could just express the creativity that I had inside. Um, so that was again 40 some years, and every day is bonus time for me. At the time that I got shot, I had another cousin who 8 months before me had a similar incident. And at the time I was shot, he had been in the hospital. He got shot in the same eye, chest, face, and he had been in a vegetative state for 8 months. So when the doctors told my parents that I would die, or if I survived, I'd probably wind up in a vegetative state, that was a reasonable prognosis. But then everybody was amazed at the outcome. So instead of remembering the time they lost their son, or I remember when I lost my sight, anytime anybody thinks about it or hears about it, it's wonder and joy at the power of transformation. So that turning point for me deepened my sense of appreciation for life and confidence that I can accomplish anything that I want to do.
I'm speechless. I have questions, but
I'll send you a
wow.
newspaper article on it so you can digest it later.
Okay, so a couple things. How old were you when this happened?
22 or 23, somewhere in between
Okay.
there.
Okay. And you
Yeah,
said it was in
22.
1978. So
Correct.
was that, so was South Central already drug in?
Yes.
It was
No, that was before the 80s when the crack epidemic stuff
right.
came up. This was before then. I mean,
Okay.
it's always been urban Los Angeles, urban New York, urban Chicago has always been challenging,
Okay.
especially for us and especially for Black men.
Gotcha. Okay. Was your cousin who owned the liquor store, was she hurt?
She wasn't there. Her son was working with me. He was in the bathroom at the time. When he heard the shooting, he
Okay.
just stayed in the bathroom.
Okay.
And
Okay.
when he came out, he saw me. He just tripped out.
Gotcha. Okay. Next question. What happened to your cousin that was in the vegetative state?
He stayed in that state for maybe 40 years. And so
What?
he was yes, he was at home. His mother had to, he had a round the clock nurse, and his mother took care of him for decades and was relieved when he finally passed. Maybe what, 5, 6 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, not that long ago.
Oh my
So
goodness.
decades. So his mother, and I reflect often on the difference between his mother's karma and my mother's karma. My mother,
They were sisters?
they were sisters, yes.
Okay.
So, she had to take care of him, and my mother saw me do all kinds of things all over the world, and it's just really reminding me how precious life is,
Mm-hmm.
and how precious each moment is. And like I said, every day is bonus time for me.
Okay. I want to ask you, you mentioned your spiritual practices,
Hmm.
and I'm familiar with the chant because I watched What's Love Got to Do with It, and Tina Turner
Hmm.
said it. Nam ye ho renge ki. Say it again.
Close. Nam myoho renge kyo.
Yes.
Nam myoho renge kyo.
Okay. And what is the interpretation of that, basically?
Um, Devotion of your cycle of life to the law of simultaneous cause and effect through harmonious vibration.
Okay. Say that one more time.
Fusing your life, your cycle of birth and death,
Mm-hmm.
with the law that has the characteristics of simultaneous cause and effect through harmonious vibration.
Okay.
And fundamentally, it's the name of our enlightened condition, that every human, everything in life has an enlightened potential.
Okay.
And this vibration is how we bring it out. One example might be a microwave. Microwave oven is not generating heat, it's generating a frequency that corresponds to the characteristic mode of vibration of the water molecule. So anything that has water in it and hears that sound starts to vibrate. Anything with
Wow.
that and at that frequency. So it's a powerful aspect of physics. And a person named Nichiren Daishonin discovered its ability to transform the human condition.
Okay, this has nothing to do with it, but just answer this question quickly so we can go back. So
Okay.
is it important then when I use my microwave that I do say if I'm cooking chicken or if I'm cooking fish, because it makes a difference in the frequency, or not really?
No, anything that has water in it.
Okay. So it's
So,
okay, good.
water is H2O. So you have,
Yeah, I get it.
H and the two, and it starts to
Uh-huh.
wiggle. And the
So as long
faster
as
it
there's
wiggles,
water in it, it's okay.
yeah,
Okay, good. Hey,
faster it wiggles,
we
the,
gotta get
the
this wisdom. Okay, so how old were you when, and this is Buddhism, is this correct?
correct. It is
Okay.
Nichiren Buddhism.
What is it again?
Nichiren Buddhism, meaning Nichiren Daishonin founded this form of Buddhism,
Okay.
and it's a bit different from what we might have been brought up in school in the Buddha, from India and stuff. I mean, they're related, but this is the more that Buddha predicted that at some point the power of his teaching would fade as time goes on, and that another person would come with a teaching appropriate for that time.
Okay, good. Okay, so my next question is, how old were you when you started practicing this? And how did you start practicing?
I was 20 years old when I started practicing. At the
So 2
time,
years, two or 3 years
I,
before.
I was like 2.5 years into my practice.
Okay.
How I was introduced to it was I was a reporter or a writer for Soul and Jazz magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in 1975, I started, and Bill Chappelle and Dee Dee McNeil, thank you so much. They created this magazine. So my assignment was to interview Herbie Hancock.
Okay.
So when I went to his house to do the interview, there were people in there chanting, so I had to wait till they finished. So my first question was, okay, what was that? What's that got to do with your music? And that was my first intelligent exposure. I had heard about, there were people who do something called chanting, and I had heard about that, and vaguely knew a little bit about Buddhism, but that was the first intelligent explanation I got that made sense to me. And,
Wow.
and but let me back up. Oh, yes. So while I was at Herbie's house, there was an album on the table with another recording artist, and his name was John Lucian. And in this record, he had some chanting in the background. So he had a group of people chanting in the chorus of the song. So me and Herbie talked about that.
Okay.
So now a week later, I go into to work at the magazine, and I was the first writer in, and they said, "Hey, you want to go on TV?" I was like, "Oh, what's up?" And there was a program called Intervisions on Channel 28 KECT in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
and the host was ill, and they were wondering if one of the reporters could host the show. So I said, sure. So the next day, Saturday, I went to host a show. The guest was John Lucian.
Okay.
And
Oh, wow.
so the producers introducing me, and I was like, hey, I met Herbie last week, and we talked about your album and the producer said, oh yeah, play that up. So it was like a 30-minute talk show where we would talk, and then he played a couple of songs, and we talked about why he practiced Buddhism, how it impacted his life, and all of that. So I went home with him for dinner. While I was there, Tina Turner came by. Leslie Uggams, Billie D. Williams, Wayne Shorter. The house was packed with, it's like something's up here. I think I need to hang, And so that was the first time I heard people chanting together, and that was my first experience. And what I liked immediately was the buzz that I felt internally.
Yes.
So I continued, that week I was just chanting because it felt good. It was buzzing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, I was like, okay, what's behind this? And that's when I started to look into doctrine. Now, I grew up in a Baptist family. And matter of fact, I was a preacher on TV when I was 9.
Wow.
Because I could talk, and they give me stuff to say. And I remember one speech back when the church bombing in the 60s. And I was doing a speech, and somebody gave me a prop, which was a shoe. Even though there were no babies in that bombing. It was there weren't no babies, there were children. But I remember one time I held a shoe and everybody went crazy or so. But because I could read and talk,
they put you in.
And also the stories and the visuals in the Bible were compelling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my aunt, my grandmother's older sister, was the first Black woman from Texas to receive a PhD.
Mm.
And she sent me science books. So I read science books and I read the Bible, and okay, what's up? So I go to my dad, just like, okay, what's true, science or religion? He said he didn't know.
Okay.
And to this day, I truly appreciate that answer rather than something dogmatic.
Yes.
And so the more I read, the more the laws of physics and chemistry made sense in explaining how the world worked. Okay. And so that was my way of looking at things. And then in my teen years, I tried a bunch of stuff, Islam, Sufism, transcendental meditation, yoga, est, any spiritual practice out there. I was checking it out, but none of them made sense compared to science.
Okay.
And then when I started digging into Buddhism, that was the first treatise or doctrine that I've seen that didn't contradict my way of looking at the world from science, the laws of science.
Okay.
But it went further in explaining things that science couldn't explain to me, like why children are born handicapped.
Okay.
And zeroing in on this law that governs the process of change. Okay. And as the more I dug into it, and then the president of Soka Gakkai International, that's the global Buddhist organization. He's the most published human being in the world. He also has more doctorate degree. He didn't go to school. He has more honorary doctorate degree than any other human being. Twice as many as the second. So the more I read of his writings, more profound than anything I've seen anywhere on the planet. So
Okay.
that's why I was following him.
Okay. So so before we go, okay,
Mhm.
because I think we need to have another show. So before we go, I think you've made very clear how this practice transformed your life. So this is, I mean, this was outstanding. So if you were to give advice, three pieces of advice to a young man, a young Black man in today's world, what would you say? What are three things you would say?
Follow your heart.
Okay.
Um, Appreciate yourself. Know your worth. And one more, learn as much as you can.
Very good. Meredith, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've said and you've shared. And I'm just so inspired. I mean, I knew a little bit about this. I've known you for a really long time, but I know this is just amazing. And I think people will truly benefit from your explanation and from your story. And you've given us something to think about and explore. So thank you. And I'm going to ask you to give me the name of that so I can put it in this link as well so that people can do some more research. So.
Okay. Can I end with a poem?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right. This is a poem from my book, Victory Every Day, which is a book of photographs of my travels around the world set to poetry, songwriting, etc. And the poem is called A Spark of Inspiration.
Okay.
All it takes is a spark of inspiration to reveal the brilliance of potential. Just a twinkle of an idea can open the door to profound revelation and hence profound change. Just as a small spark can ignite a raging fire, so too can the impulse from a tiny seed of thought brighten the whole planet. A notion from a dream to be better can awaken a resolve to shine, which in turn spurs an inkling of insight that blossoms to an awesome awakening, a rich revelation. Just a gleam of light can be magnified into a shower of illumination if there is inspiration. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
So I'm putting in the chat.
Okay, we can't see the chat. So thank you so much. And I will make sure that I share that in this production. Thank you all so much for watching another episode of Defining Moments with Jolena Johnson and Meredith Beal.